After I exited, we sold to private equity, and then I stayed on for as CEO for another year. And then ChatGPT moment just came up, and that was a great opportunity to realize that the work we started to Tango, we didn't finish it. My daughter just asked me this a few days ago. She's early 20s, and she said, how did you know? How were you able to keep going while not knowing if it's going to work or not? What you learn over time is to believe in yourself more and more, where I don't know what the solution is going to be, but I have strong conviction. So you got to be able to live with uncertainty.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Founders Network podcast. I'm Kevin Holmes, a founder CEO of Founders Network, here with our guest today, Guy Nirpaz. Guy is a pioneer of customer success. And quick intro on Guy. He founded Totango in 2010, scaled it to 20 million users across 2 million businesses, raised 149 million across 7 rounds for that company, eventually exited to private equity, and is the award-winning author of Farm Don't Hunt, which is the definitive guide to customer success. This is actually how I first encountered Guy, was, believe it or not, reading Farm Don't Hunt. So if you haven't yet, check that out. He's currently the founder of Perspective AI, which is AI-powered CX agents, building the company in a healthier way enabled by AI. So he's really an incredible resource about the topic of customer success. If you're thinking about that, we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about why he's doing another startup, what's going on with AI in July of 2026, and for founders and in the venture ecosystem, how to think about this moment and how to operate in it. So welcome, Guy. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Kevin. Happy to be here.
So why don't we start off with, I guess, why? So you're coming off of a 14-year run with Totango, and here you are at it again. Founders Network is lifelong success through peer mentorship. It's a 15-year-old organization for tech startup founders helping founders. And one of our core insights is that once you do one startup, for some masochistic reason, you want to do another. So I thought we could just start off with that and ask you why you're doing this to yourself again.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So after I exited, so we sold to private equity to Tango, and then I stayed on for as CEO for another year, and then parted and did some board work. But very quickly, I became bored. And, ChatGPT moment just came up, and that was a great opportunity to realize that the work we started to Tango, we didn't finish it. And the work is around customer centricity and customer obsession. And although these terms have been around for a very long time, most companies are unable to execute customer centric and sustain it for a long time. And the idea was, okay, maybe what's the issue here? Potentially the problem is, or that's kind of my belief, the problem is that it's hard, just very hard to, scale and stay customer centric at the same time for 2 core reasons that we were going to talk about. But so the idea was, okay, let's use AI as a way to, so now we have a new form factor, a new way to engage. Let's use that to solve that problem once and for all. That's kind of on a personal mission level. And the other part of the founder level, I think, you call it masochistically, which is, sometimes true, but more importantly, I think it is true, but it's kind of more of a personal journey, right? I think what happens, you embark on a personal journey, and, besides building companies, you really find yourself by going through this journey. So the journey presents you a lot of challenges, and these challenges is basically your opportunity to learn about yourself, what you like, what you don't like, what you're good at, where do you need to improve, and so forth. And I think it's pretty addictive to constantly stay on that journey. So, I enjoy the journey a lot.
Well, I mean, we say the masochistic thing as a tongue-in-cheek joke, and it's important to remember, we also say in Founders Network that we chose this path. And I don't know, maybe many of us have had jobs, cubicle farm, jobs. I know I had one, right? And 9 to 5 kind of jobs. I think it's who you are, right? You're just bored. As you said, you're bored doing that, right? So it's about that stimulation.
Yeah. I mean,
learning.
Obviously, once you have experience, then you're being sought out for board positions or advisory jobs, or even investment, which, I sparingly do, but I realize that I'm not a good advisor.
Mm.
When people come to me with a problem, I want to jump in and help solve it. So, that's not like a sit on the sideline, observe and comment. And I'm very opinionated. So I think, I might as well find a problem, go solve it, and enjoy the path. Build a team, build something of meaning, make impact on people's life, on my family's life through that.
Yeah, and touching on a few things, right? Like making meaning, impact. Technology is a multiplier, right? And so creating a technology startup, you're not just impacting the employees, but the customers. Totango had 20 million customers, which is incredible, or users, yeah, and 2 million customers, which is incredible. So you've definitely had that impact. You mentioned growth and learning. I wonder about that for you. What have you learned about growth and learning as a founder? Like, is it about kind of figuring out where the Peter principle of you rise to your own level of incompetence, or is it about actually gaining new competencies, or how do you think about, you know, where
Yeah,
you
no,
want to grow and learn, and where do you kind of realize I need that partner?
yeah, I think you mentioned this before. Being a founder or CEO, early stage company CEO, this is not a job. It's not like if you're gonna try to build a job description, kind of like the classical one with being specific and it changes so frequently, right? So it's not like here's the job and now go do it. This is, I think, sometimes why, very experienced people that come to startup life are not successful because it's very dynamic. It's very so the point being is I was joking in the past, but I think it's true that every year your job is different, right? And if you're unable to morph into the new job, and I think some of the very fast growing companies right now, it's every 2 weeks your job is different. It's more like a problem solver. So you basically
Mm.
solve the problems at hand, and you basically have a bunch of tools, which is okay. What is it that you do? What what do you delegate? How do you delegate? How you know? A lot of times is how do you solve the sorry, how do you define the problem? How do you it's a work of discovery. What are we dealing with? What can we do? What are the options available for us? Who can do what? And let's go do it. And is it working? And that's kind of basically the cycle you run. So it's not, you want to maybe it's like more like a PI, like a private detective job. It's not. The framing is get this from inception to commercial success, but what are the activities to do along the way? This changes with the situation, and it's very different when you still try to figure out what the problem of the market is, what is the opportunity, what's the market, what's the distribution model. And later on, it's okay, how do I grow it beyond the markets I'm in? And it's just different types of problems. And this is why in many cases you sometimes needs to find additional partners, additional team members that can help you get this done. And and then yeah, so I think that's the this is kind of the it's learning. And I would say that I don't necessarily think that learning is you're gonna consume and you're becoming better. I think over time you just morph. Sometimes it's accumulating and more, sometimes you got to forget early lessons and relearn them because maybe market conditions 10 years ago are not market conditions right now. So just applying, go to market strategies from 10 years ago to today are not necessarily going to work. So I think there's a lot of humility in kind of constantly filling the gap of what is it that I don't know? How do I, solve these issues as we go along? But I think the key is my daughter just asked me this few days ago. She's, early 20s, and she said, how did you know how did you how were you able to keep going while not knowing if it's going to work or not?" So I'm
Mm.
saying that what you learn over time is to believe in yourself more and more, where I don't know what the solution is going to be because I don't know what the problems are going to be, but I have strong conviction that I will be able to overcome a lot of it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that's the mental framework that you build yourself into over time. I think that's
Well,
the
it sounds
journey.
like Yeah, it sounds like a belief in yourself and your ability to solve problems versus having all the answers at the start.
Yeah, and I think, it's your ability to keep going, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, how many of us have so many days where it starts with you don't know what the problem is, but you can't put your finger on it, and then you know what it is, but you don't have a solution for it, and then you try to solve it, and it doesn't solve, and so forth and so forth. So there's a lot of uncertainty and in your mind. So you got to be able to to live with uncertainty while not gaining 40 kilos or whatever, right? That's kind of the key.
How
80
do you
pounds,
manage
90,
how
100
do you
pounds.
manage stress? Have you found a way to kind of, live a healthy lifestyle as an entrepreneur?
So I'd say that origin, like on the Totango days, yeah, I definitely, that was I didn't do well there. Enterprise business, international travel, very imbalanced lifestyle, a lot of stress. In recent years, what I found is I've got the Aura Ring. I just posted something on LinkedIn yesterday. Aura Ring is the measurement, and swimming is the diffusing activity. So I'm kind
Okay.
of focused on, I got to swim at least 4 or 5 times a week.
Okay. Yeah. And
Yeah.
are you putting in a good distance?
As you grow older, the joints are having a harder time than the muscles, but, my swim is usually like 2,000 meters a
Oh,
swim.
that's great. Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Well, there you go. I think life lesson right there for founders about managing the stress, right? I think
Yeah, but
I,
I'm
yeah.
super concerned that once international travel is going to go back into this business as well, which this is what things are starting to
Yeah.
look like. The balance is gonna. I'll have to learn how to
Yeah.
balance through imbalance
Yeah.
lifestyle as well.
Boundaries, right? I don't know if that's a word that entrepreneurs are familiar with a lot of times, right? Because you eat, sleep, drink, your startup, you're thinking about it, working about it all the time. And that's a big difference from what we were starting out talking about with the 9 to 5 boundaries. But with a startup, you said it's not a job description. It's not even on you can't write it up on a paper, right? So
You
to me,
could,
that
but it's
also
gonna
has
change tomorrow.
it's going to change tomorrow, but there's a double-edged sword there, right? So on one hand, it creates an opportunity for self-growth, discovery, learning, interesting every day. On the other hand, how do you kind of find the edge of the paper and find those times to go to the pool and, take care of yourself?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of one thing. I'm very kind of my style is very ad hoc, and I've
Hmm.
learned this about myself and
Hmm.
so forth. But one of the fact that that Aura is kind of basically creating a daily journal for everything,
Hmm.
it actually helps me kind of go back and look, and I see the impact on performance, like mental performance, creativity performance, keeping at a task for longer and so forth, and I can see the difference. So the for me, it's not I got to find time that actually creates time for me because my performance is better. So I think it's kind of that everyone can find their own thing. It's a coach, it's a
Yeah.
journal, but ultimately I think kind of when the rhythm is better, then the performance is better. And
Yeah. So anyways, creating some structures or some, quantification to help what can't be measured can't be managed, right? 2,000 meters, 4 times, 5 times a week, right? It's an important part of this topic of, which I wanted to start out talking about, which is kind of the founderhood topic of why are you doing this and what motivates you? And I think it's a good sort of segue into to Tango and what you're doing today. So I encounter a lot of founders who their next startup is in a totally different industry and space than their last startup. Occasionally you come across founders who have success, not many, who do multiple startups at the same time. I don't recommend that. But as far as what I'm hearing from you, it's very much like this is a life's work. This is a passion, customer success. You helped create that category with Totango. What is it about that problem that, why do you suppose you've kind of landed on?
yeah, I think like if you're in B2B, right, which is my the domain, I think businesses are very if you're selling to businesses, that's kind of what I mean. You got like key domains that define business. One of the key domains is customers, right? Obviously, employees, finances, products, operations, but customers is a key thing, and it's and it's not very well addressed. There's a gap. First is the realization that customers is a relationship problem, not it's not a transactional problem, right? It's a
Mm,
the domain is kind of more of a
mm,
secondly, customers is a long-term problem. It's not even in e-commerce, the expectation is repeat
mm,
buyers. It's not like a
yeah.
one time. You can't do business on a single, treating the customer as a transaction. And I think these challenges have led to kind of try to figure out. And I must say that I have at home my wife. She runs her own yoga and Pilates business as a solo owner operator of that business, and I can always kind of look at how she manages customer relationship, how she cares about her clients, right? Specifically in her business, it's about she has customers of over 10, 15, 20 years and so forth. So and how different it is when once companies become bigger, right?
Mm,
And so I want either all businesses to be able to have a relationship with the customers like my wife's business or like Amazon, right? And Amazon,
yeah.
I mean, Amazon, the aspiring model, it's not where it is right now, but at least conceptually about, customer obsession and so forth. So, and a lot of folks have, let me say this differently. It seems logical that if there's perfect alignment between your business and your customers, meaning the products and services and experiences that companies provide to customers are in great alignment with what the market is looking for, that is uh, underlying core principle for healthy business. High margin, high growth, and so forth. But in reality, we barely speak that language in business, right? There's a lot of like very quickly. This, yeah, that's true. But then let's focus on demand generation and marketing campaigns and sales processes and sales enablement and onboarding
Yeah.
customers and so forth. And very quickly, the organization kind of forgets the core
Mm,
this
yes.
this core principle. And when it doesn't forget, good things happen, and when it does forget, a lot of bad things.
Yes.
Kind of bad
Yeah.
things happen, and I think it can't be like after the fact principle. That's kind of what my core belief is. But on the other hand, everything that they just described, if it was so simple, why wouldn't people do that? Because
Yeah.
I think it's hard. So I think that
Yeah.
that kind of friction point
Yeah.
has to be resolved, and it has it's good for the customers, it's good for the business, it's good for the world. That is what and I think it's a hard problem to solve. So customer success was one attempt to solve it through the lenses of recurring revenue business. So how we're going to convince everyone to solve for it, to drive value for customers. In a recurring revenue business, there's a clear relation, churn,
Hmm.
net revenue retention, and so forth. The metrics do not align if you're unable to keep your customers for a longer period of time. So it's a lifetime value business. If you can't do that, you can't grow. All right. So here's motivation to drive customer success and so forth. I think another, it's a domain that is similar is customer experience. So if customer success was kind of more like the B2B version of that, the customer experience, the Medallions, Qualtrics of the world was more on the B2C side of the world. And their attempt was around this idea that, okay, there's a gap between customer experience and the customer experience you provide, the customer experience the customer receives, and you got to measure this gap over time and then continuously close this gap, right? So that's a good concept, but now I think I got a bigger framework for that. I think I call it the customer momentum loop, which
Mm,
is that's the framework I'm thinking that customer success is. The problem with that, it was anchored around the team, although I
mm,
don't think it should have been anchored around the team, but that's what happened. It was anchored around the team, and customer experience was anchored around the dashboard or the survey,
mm.
and customer momentum is the operating model to actually execute on the customer obsession concept that Jeff Bezos coined, right? So customer obsession is the driving principle, like the energy that drives alignment for the business around customer needs and experiences, and the continuous improvement of the way the business operates around what customer needs. And I, the reason why I felt like to start perspective around this idea is with AI changing everything right now, the entire stack is changing, the entire value chain is changing. Not being able to be in sync with your customers and the markets you operate in presents a huge potential drift into a business that goes, you know, into the ground eventually. Or being very much aligned and in sync with the markets you operate in gives you this opportunity that is driving by, all this energy and dynamics of the market. And happy to talk more about the customer momentum
Yeah.
loop, but
Yes.
but that's I think the this massive change of AI is basically kind of reinforcing that motivation.
So customer momentum loop is the new book or concept
Yeah.
that may be coming soon. And I remember when I read A Farm Don't Hunt, it was prefaced on in the beginning there's customer service, but customer success is a new function, and it's in the world of SaaS we have renewals, and we want to nurture those relationships so they renew, and it's proactive. That was the big difference from customer success, anchored around, as you said, the team, these new customer success teams. I wonder let's explore that. Yeah, let's tell us more about customer momentum loop. And I'm just curious, what does that mean for customer success, right?
Yeah, so I think it's broader than the customer. I mean, even I'd say in the customer success space, there's always like two camps. One was the camp. I mean, it wasn't like official, but I think different point of view, different emphasis. There was one emphasis where customer success is around the fact that you have a function called customer success, and they are the organization responsible for driving value to the customer, so to maximize renewal upsell, whether or not they own the number or not. It's a separate topic, but the key is someone needs to make sure that the customer that signed up the contract will renew it, will buy more, and there needs to be a process and a workflow for a consistent behavior like that. That was camp number one. The way I saw that, it was always around the customer journey. Even in the book, the Farm Don't Hunt book, it was around the customer journey. So think about the customer journey and drive value proactively along the journey, so the renewal is a non-issue and so forth, right? So it was kind of more focused on the customer journey. And and then in the recent years, I think because of AI optimization, because of post 2021, cost reduction needs by organizations, the fact that all of a sudden companies started to ask, do we need such a large customer success team? How do we, put the metrics of success managers to customers, to revenue, and so forth? That kind of opened the question. Okay, so what happens to customer success when the team shrinks, budgets evaporate, and so forth? But my answer is, yeah, but let's leave the team aside for a second as a separate topic. You still have customers that you need to onboard, drive value to, ensure they renew on time, sell them product. So, whether it's the same team is doing this, whether you split it across other functions, still it needs to happen, right? For
Mm.
for the
Mm.
business. So I think my framing is, okay, so let's think about this as the journey needs to be proactively managed if you want to renew customers, and add the shift that is happening right now from subscription per seat models into usage-based pricing and so forth. So all of a sudden, there's even a stronger tie between value and consumption to revenue, right? Because usage, right? I mean, all those FDEs right now, the front deployment engineers, are
Mm.
basically plumbers that are being sent on site to connect the enterprise to the token pipeline, right? So you gotta connect the token pipeline in order to make money for the token providers, which are the AI models and so
Mm.
forth. So it's even more important. So I don't think
I love that
any
metaphor.
anything.
Yeah.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
don't think anything kind of changed in the specific. If you focus on the customer journey, right? We can see that, by the way, that if you think about subscription, you think about token. These are very customer facing models. right? The customer pay for the value, whether it's measured in tokens or whether it's measured in seats or whatever, but they pay
Yeah.
for value, which is very different than the way it used to be before. You pay for access. Now you only pay if you consume, right? So that's kind of even,
Mm.
more choices for the customers and so forth. So what I'm basically trying to say is if we take like a broader look here, what companies are the customer momentum. Let's talk about what is the outcome of customer momentum. So when there is customer momentum, and we can see this with products like Cloud Code or Cursor or things like that, there's a pull from the market, right? There's a pull from the market. You market very little, you sell very little because there's a alignment between the product you generate and what the customer need. There's almost no friction in the flow. Customers talk to one another. They convince one another to buy more from you. They convince within the organization to buy more and more and more. And it creates this,
Flywheel.
energy
Yeah. Yeah.
that is driving the business. So the customers are creating this energy that drives the business. This is the dream every
It's the holy
CEO
grail. Yeah.
has, right?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
what we want to have.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm thinking of it, the metaphor here is alignment. There is almost 100% alignment between the customer and the market and the business, the product, the services, the experience, the pricing, all of that. It's like in a complete alignment. And because of this alignment, the energy from the market is basically driving this loop and it creates this acceleration, and this acceleration drives growth and fuels innovation and so forth and so forth. That's great. The other approach, when you don't have that, there's a lot of cost in the business because there's a lot of friction. You got to market very aggressively because there's no pull from the market. You got to sell very aggressively, so acquisition cost is very high. You got to onboard. It's very hard to onboard customers, and it's very expensive. And every renewal is a battle, and so forth. Why is that? Is because there's inefficiencies. There's no good alignment between the business and the market. So what you're trying to do as an organization is find the alignment, grow the alignment, maintain the alignment. This is the loop that I'm talking about. And the
Mm.
idea is you got the customers, and then you have like engagement from, you talk to the customers, you learn from it, you identify problems, opportunities, and so forth. You prioritize them, you sequence them, and you create a new version of your company, new version of your product, your service, your experience, your pricing. And you keep going back to the customers, and you're improving. In every new version of your company, what you're trying to do is have a high alignment between where you are and where the market is. And because the market keeps moving, right? Who would have known 3 years ago that cloud code is going to be such a huge business today, right? So everything had to be iterated super quickly. The companies that are able to be uh, in their markets at the closer alignment to their customers and continuously stay in alignment and iterate and they get even closer, not only they grow faster, they grow also more efficiently because they need to market less, they need to sell less, the customer acquisition cost is lower, the win rate is higher, right? Win rate is a metric of efficiency, and that increases the profitability, right? You for the same amount of deals, you close more, you make more, so your margin is higher. The same thing with running the journey. So onboarding customers is simpler, and the product, every feature of the product creates more value to customers and so forth. So if you think about this alignment is what is the holy grail, and the loop is the customer momentum loop is this process to measure the gaps, identify the reasons, learn as an organization. I mentioned before, the key friction points in customer centricity is truly understanding your customers, right? Like at granular level that can be actionable. And making sure that understanding is an organizational understanding. It's not a single person or single department understands something, but it takes 3 months, 6 months from the customer success team to get the message across to the product team to build the feature in order to. And now that building and making change should not be an issue anymore because of AI. It's much, much simpler. The key is making the right set of changes super quickly across the board in complete alignment with the customers. So that's the customer momentum loop. And I think that that's what the organization needs to do. There are the technical elements that are tied to that. And there's a lot of, this vision tied into the way we build Perspective AI as a product. But the key idea is to get to be able to run your organization like that. And I also think it's a new concept that the chief customer officer, that the CEO can bring to the board and to the answer. So what do you guys do with AI? So how do you guys do things differently with AI? Because when I went to ask a lot of folks in the customer success and the customer experience space, I learned two things. One is they're a bit demotivated. It seems like that sometime along the way, scaling customer experience and customer success led to one size fits all experience, which is it's not their core belief. They don't think that. And when it comes to AI, everyone told me that they're building customer 360, which is like, CRM initial promise in the 90s was customer 360, and then customer success was customer 360. So customer 360 is not the solution for what you do with AI for customer experience. I think that's kind of my core belief, that the customer momentum loop, that's what you do with AI in order to take your customers, take the energy from the market, drive it through your business, back to your market, and continuously driving, profitable growth. So growth and higher margins, which gives you competitive advantage and so forth. So it's a similar concept to the flywheel, the generic flywheel, but more specifically to, that part of
Yeah.
the business.
I guess that makes me think about your concept with 100% alignment. And like, is this a phase in a company life cycle? Is it a phase in a market life cycle, industry life cycle, that eventually new entrants come in and crowd out, compete, and then the cost of sales just goes up? Does it have a sort of point in time, or conversely, is this objective of 100% alignment, is it something that great companies in competitive spaces just rate higher on it, and they're growing at a better rate because of it?
So first, I think it's gonna fit. It's always relative. I think there's never 100% alignment. So that's the advantage here. So you always aspire to be better, right? So if we take the Amazon example, right now it's same day delivery, or a few hours delivery. That wasn't the case 10 years ago. So the point being is there's always it's a moving target,
Mm.
which is a good thing. But the direction of the target is to understand what does alignment should look like now, like today, and where are we against that, and what's the gap, and let's close this gap. So my expectation is that your top 3 priorities need to change constantly, let's say every month or so, every quarter. But your top 3 priorities need to change for 2 reasons. One is your number 1 priority is being fixed. You solved it, so now number 2 becomes number 1, and so forth. Secondly, a new number 1 emerges because of competitive pressure, because of market dynamics, because of technology shift, and so forth. So this is why I call it a loop, because it's not like we do it once and we're done. It's constantly figuring out where are we against the market, how well do we understand the markets, the customers that we serve, and how fast can we execute on either taking advantage of technology opportunities or market opportunities, or friction points that could represent risk or could represent inefficiencies and so.
Yeah. Another reaction to this idea and question I have is like, whereas Totango, as you mentioned, was about customers, about relationships and long term, maybe creating stickiness from those relationships and improving renewal, and maybe collecting some insights and passing it back to product. Customer momentum sounds a lot more like purely on the product side of understanding insights and passing that back to product, because product now, the barrier, the bar is lowered down by your ankles, basically, with Claude Code. And so the emphasis at this moment in time is more so on how quickly can we equip companies to gain insights and iterate more quickly on product. Is that accurate, or is that not exactly right?
I think, I can see that if the company that you're talking about is a product company, or but I think even in customer success, the discussion has been on value delivery, right? So I think is, okay, the customer is buying for value, and the value is being delivered on a mix, depending on the business model, on a mix of product. The value could come in directly just from the product, come from the product and the packaging of the product packaging and pricing, product packaging, pricing, services around this product, or could be that the product is a service, or even the experiences around it. So the question is, what is the value the customer is looking for, and where's the gap? And you're right. So you're 100% correct in the sense that, okay, so there's the customer facing part of it. So how well are we aligned with the customer on the value delivery chain? What are the specific gaps? And then the gaps could be product gaps, could be service gaps, could be pricing and packaging gaps, could be timing gaps, could be distribution gaps, could be all sorts of gaps. And then, then you got to execute on that. So closing the gaps or taking advantage of these opportunities, that's the next version of the company. If we be more specific, could be a next version of your sales deck, could be the next version of the homepage, could be the next version of the welcome experience, could be the next version of a specific feature, could be of the product, and so forth. But you're right that if we use like a product, let's say product iteration mindset. I mean, I come from product, but it's a product iteration mindset where everything that you do is productized and you constantly create the next version. And a good iterative next version is no regression and only improvement. That is how I see this, right? So yes, maybe there is a product framing here where everything is a product,
yes,
but the company is the product of the value
Yeah.
to deliver to the customer. That's kind of how I think about this.
Yeah, if you're a salesperson listening to this, you might be thinking about your pitch, or right, as you said, it's going to be in the eyes of the beholder what that means. And I suppose that at the moment we're in with AI is enabling capturing those insights at scale and easier and faster, and a faster iterative loop than ever before. Is this kind of the premise for perspective AI?
Yes. So I think that, so first, over time we wanna be able to deliver this entire loop, or at least enable to orchestrate this entire loop for organization. But I think, I think that I've started thinking loops when I was head of engineering like 20 years ago.
Mm.
Implementing Scrum, and so you have like the daily Scrum. If people are not familiar, so Scrum was one of the early agile software development, and the concept of agile software development was around iterative development, meaning every iteration is better than the previous one. That's the concept, and then also iteration of the process as well, not just the product. And but one of the things is, every sprint back then was 1 month and then 2 weeks. You basically learn from previous sprint of execution. What can we do better? What can we learn? What can we do better? And the idea is to continuously improve the speed, the cycle that is drawn from lean manufacturing, Japanese lean manufacturing principles, Six Sigma, and so forth and so forth. So this idea that you constantly got to get feedback in order to learn, for me, it has always been engraved. And when I ran Totango, we had a lot of loops like win-loss analysis or churn analysis, or everything that you do, you want to improve, you got to learn how to improve it. I think the opportunity right now with AI is that the loops are much shorter, so you can do more, right? So if you think about learning, the more loops you run, the faster the learning is, right? Because if you do a loop every month, then you got 12 learning opportunities a year. If you do a loop every day, you got 365 learning opportunities a year, right? And the faster you learn, combined with super fast execution right now with AI. So if you can take learning into execution, and the learning into next version becomes a matter of days instead of months, you can clearly see the compounding effect of it. And that's one of the advantages. You can see that the companies that have the customer momentum, companies like Anthropic or others, the compounding effect, right? They come from behind it, all of a sudden, boom, this is like almost a direct line into Mars because of the compounding effect. So loops are not just, feedback and so forth. It creates like a compounding
Yeah,
advantage.
I love that. I love that idea of waterfall to agile to AI loops. And of course, you take it a step further, you can just sort of be in an echo chamber with AI for those loops, but very easily you're going to be hallucinating and getting misled by AI. And so what do you want to anchor it on? Customers. If you anchor those loops on customers and that's the bottleneck, right? So if you can more quickly and fast in a faster way, in a faster loop, learn from customers, then everything else downstream from that in your iterations creates more alignment.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, 100%. And there's another element here.
Well, I hope you agree. You're building perspective
No,
AI.
no, no, no.
So I'm preaching to the choir, but I love this line of thinking. This is cool because it's relevant to all founders, right?
Exactly. And I want to add one
Yeah.
more thing here, which is energy. Like energy, like where's the source of energy? What's driving? I mean,
Mm,
you know what? What drives me is impacting customers' business, impacting customer
mm.
success. When you are coaching, I'm suspecting, right? I'm guessing that one of your motivation is that you coach someone and you impacted their actions and it leads to
Yeah, it's
success, right?
not, and it's not necessarily, you know, money related for a lot of founders. It's that it's the reward is in that the impact, right? And like the customers giving you that and telling you like, hey, this was
Exactly.
really amazing, right?
And so we can tie it back into the founder's journey. So when you get more and more energy from customers, right?
Mm,
Energy, right? You get more learning, more feedback, and this energy feeds in. And it doesn't mean you're not looking for you're great, you're awesome, your product is awesome. No, no, that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for this is working for us, but this, we got some big gaps here. We need
yeah.
to close. This is I can tell you, I can see this how it moves the team, right? For me, every time there's something coming from customers, I'm distributing this to everyone on the team because first the collective brain power of all my employees versus me is much bigger. And
Mm,
secondly, the collective brain power of all my team plus their AI agents is even
mm, yeah.
larger, but it also moves them, right? People solve problems to people, right? That's very kind of
Yeah.
it creates this motivation. And I
Yeah.
think this energy is a very positive energy for businesses. Why do you exist? I mean, yes, value to shareholders, but how do you drive value to shareholders? Through driving value to your customers and building products that people like and enjoy and
Mm,
changes their life, improve their life, creates better tomorrows for them. Whatever
yeah.
whatever this is,
Yeah.
funneling this energy into the organization to grease all the cogs in the machine in order
Yeah.
to produce the new version is a very positive
Yeah.
flow. That's by
Yeah.
the way, if folks didn't read, I think it's the first shareholder letter by Jeff Bezos, and the topic there about customer obsession and customer aligned organizations. That's exactly what he talks about. I think there's a practical way to think about this and execute on that. It's not just leaving an empty chair for the customer on your virtual meeting table. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of getting this energy into everything that
Yeah.
we do as an organization.
I love that. And it loops back to our earlier conversation about why you do this, right? I think those customer conversations are fuel to keep you going as a founder. Whenever you're out of alignment with that, maybe you're two heads down, you're not leaving your four walls of your office, you're just on your vibe coding away. Getting out, talking to customers always is connecting with that source.
It's gonna, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. I even feel more energized talking about talking about it. It kind of
I, I
inspire,
mean,
makes
I
yeah.
can tell you that to me, it was always like the things that kept me going into Tango, even like the very difficult days, where you lose a deal and that you
Yeah.
worked on so hard and so forth,
Yeah.
is spending time with customers, right? There's always something there. And I mentioned that, the some of the customer success leaders kind of have been, a bit down in the last few years.
Mm.
And I had a interesting conversation the other day with a customer success leader. And that's what she told me. She said, a good day for me is a day that I created value to customers, that, I had a call with someone that basically reflected, positive movement in their
Yeah.
business
Yeah.
because of something that my product did, my company, something that I did. A terrible day for me is administration day.
Yeah.
So I think getting back into giving permission, giving us ourselves permission,
Yeah.
because we work with other people. We work with financially motivated people like VCs, and we work with we work with all sorts of dimensions, and but giving ourselves permission to connect fast growth, success, profitability into making meaning and creating value to customers.
Yeah.
And creating this framework was very important for me. Creating a framework that allows that to be able to say it's a very good business model to use AI to create maximum alignment, to drive customer momentum, to grow your business. That's it. All these components, they fit. It's not, you don't need to feel ashamed that would you care about those things. You don't have to. I mean, there's other ways to run businesses, but the way in which I like and believe in is this.
Uh, As I mentioned, there's different types of entrepreneurs, right? And this actually resonates with me in the sense that I get energy from that too. We have LPs in the FN fund who started their businesses because it looked good on a spreadsheet, and they just chose an industry because it looked even better on a spreadsheet. And that's one way to do it. But I like this, and I guess as I think about this idea of energy as a founder, and 14 years of Totango, right? And a lot of members and founders network, it's a
12,
lifelong
but
network.
yeah, fine.
Oh,
It's
sorry,
okay.
12. Okay. Felt like 14. 12 years at Totango, at that point, it's just a rounding error. You must have had these ebbs and flows of energy and plateaus, and maybe a lot of founders encounter burnout. I'm curious, also part of it is as you grow, you grew to, as we talked about, so many customers and how many employees did you guys grow to?
At the max, we were like 200.
Yeah. So that can create some, distance from you and that source of customers. Did you experience that? Did you have to kind of reconnect with like staying close to customers, or are there any insights there that might be helpful to founders to how to think about, yes, I need to build an organization that'll scale to 200 employees and et cetera, and millions of customers, and I need to build a team. And there's other things that are going to take my time and attention, but like that customer obsession, how do you were you always sort of true to that throughout the whole journey, or did you have to relearn it? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, so I think it's a very good point. So first, that's the reason behind behind perspective, where that this idea scaling customer conversations, kind of scaling meaningful customer conversation, attended and unattended, to be able to constantly and have it at the tip of your fingers, to be able to read, to listen, like voice, to analyze, and it's always available. I remember a lot of the times I would, given that I was not in all customer meetings, obviously, I would spend time with the customer success team. Like with slow Fridays, I would go to, way before COVID, when there was actually an office and so forth, I would go to where the customer success team, and I would start talking to them. So what happened this week? What did you learn? And I would interrogate them and so forth, and then
Mm.
find all sorts of, crazy stuff in the business that was very, I could see why would it frustrate a customer, right? I
Yeah.
could see why,
Yeah.
you talk to the folks, and then they explain to you that, for example, there's no progress with this customer because they had a training session of configuring something, and because the UX experience, was not as effective within a 45-minute conversation, 5 minutes chit chat, and 10 minutes at the end, next steps. In 30 minutes, they were not unable to complete the flow. So,
Yeah.
so the next scheduling was in 2 weeks. And, this entire project was delayed by a month for no good reason. And so this is just an example. So, I mean, I always try to be as close as possible to all customers, but, it's
Impossible.
unrealistic.
Yeah.
But you probably heard that Jensen Wang is Nvidia CEO, is like over 70 people direct reports, and he asked people from the company to write him emails directly for him to scan all the raw data. I think this idea of staying true to the to where staying connected to where the truth is, without the obstructions of summarization and so forth, I think is highly desirable. I think especially in the competitive markets. I think for startups, for sure.
Yeah.
For me, it's always I think a lot of folks that work with me felt that I was maybe too hands-on on too many things,
Yeah.
too much. That it would be the feedback I would get, but
To me, it connects with the topic of founder mode and like being a micromanager on one end, and then what is like the healthy mode of that, right? And staying connected to the customers is the imperative. Otherwise, you wind up with, new Coke or something. So yeah, I think that, and you talked about like having permission to do that, right? Like I think that maybe that's a takeaway here too for founders is just knowing that, hey, I might come across as interrogating you, but like this is, as the leader, I need to know and have those conversations to really understand deeply. If anything, it's a sign of how important those people are on your team.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. I think I think the difference is this, right? Is I think this is like the. I mean, by the way, this is very timely with AI, right? So, what is the topic of the what how AI works? Well, when it has context. What is context? It's not all the information. It's the information that matters, accurate. All right. So it's not customer 360. Everything that has happened. It's what is the information that
Yeah.
is needed in order to make a decision, take action, and so forth. That's gonna. So I think as we kind of observe the AI, basically telling us, in order for me to work well, I need to have the context. We're talking about the same thing. As a
Mm.
leader, I need to
Mm.
have the context in order to, understand problems, solve problems, take action. Same thing with AI. So the new idea is, instead of silos where all the data is aggregated and summarized, it's all the context is available for anyone to look. Then you can have a healthy debate of interpretation and taking action. That's the approach. And I think, I actually think that, seeing how humanity, or the business humanity, is trying to figure out what is cognition, what is intelligence, how do you learn, decision making process. I mean, in the past, decision making was, only for managers or people that were very much interested in this topic. These days, every engineer is being an expert in decision making, because they build agents that need to make decisions. So they need to understand the ins and outs and what's a good decision, bad decision, and so forth. It's very fascinating to see. But the point that it makes is, this idea of hierarchies or silos, or things along those lines, it's probably not the right architecture for organizing work, or organizing decision making, and more of shared information at all levels, raw, summarized, and so forth, is the right approach to create innovation, to make good decisions, and so forth. So I think this every AI agent needs to be in founder mode. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually a good, transition to this idea of like where we are now and what's your take on where it's going? Like, do you feel like, we're in the hype cycle? Do you feel like, I was having coffee this morning with somebody who's thinking of shutting their startup down because they're not convinced that this is the moment where like vertical software is ever going to make sense. Like it's going to be too challenging and the AI is just going to generate the software, kind of ambient software, bespoke in the moment and this kind of stuff. Like, what's your take on all of that? And I don't know, where do you see things landing?
yeah, I think, yeah. So first, I mean, like in The Simpsons, there's this with the clouds part way, and it says The Simpsons. So I feel that we're kind of going through clouds, and every like few months, clouds part ways, and there's a new theme of the day, right? So it used to be everything is going to be assistant, and then assistants are becoming agents, and now everyone realizes the agent is just a new way to say software. So, and so forth and so forth. So I think like all these kind of absolute truths that social media kind of promotes,
Yeah.
should be taken with a grain of salt. Maybe it's going to be like that. Maybe it's not going to be like that. Who knows? I think AI is real for sure, right? You can see that the capabilities are real. You can do a lot of things. But I'm again coming to this. I mean, so my premise is, as long as humans making the purchasing decisions, right? Because that could change too, but then nothing else matters anyway. So as long as humans are the ones that consume the value, you build, making purchasing decisions, right? Driving the economic engine, if you will. You start from there and you ask this question, right? I mean, the fact that everyone can build their own website is a good. First, it's not true, but let's say that is it is true. Will they want to build their own website, right? Will you want to, you want to cook all of your meals because you can do it, or would you like to go to restaurants from time to time? So I think that the question kind of more
Mm.
is, what is the market looking for on specifics, and then take it from there. And that's the So that's on one thing, right? So the thesis of businesses and products. So in my case, in perspective, I think I'm saying, okay, all this AI, building AI on top of organizational data is good, but there's data set that is missing. It's in customers' heads. So if you don't go grab it, this is always going to be missing. And because it's critical, that's the basis for perspective, right? There's always something in customers' heads.
Mm,
It's always fresh. It's always like new ideas, new needs, new motivations, new requirements because of their dynamics. And
yeah.
if you don't bring this into the organization, your decision making process is impaired. So
Mm,
that's my thesis for what we're doing. At the same time, you got to be we said like you got to be super aligned and super nimble. Things are moving, perceptions are changing. The so you can't. It's not like this. Especially in the application market. That's it's a one size fits all. Or like I have a thesis, I can run with it for like 5 years. No, you gotta be very quick. And lastly, I think when everyone is doing the exact same thing, probably sticking to something which is opposite to what everyone else is doing has a higher potential for alpha than doing like when everyone is building agent builders that build websites. At some point, yeah, that's good, but it's hyper commoditized. So I don't know. So there's no like. I think it's real. Personally, I think it's very exciting. I enjoy it a lot. I think working with a team these days is a lot of fun because you can try things out. You kind of mentioned earlier about build versus buy. I don't remember if those in the prequel or should you build it? Should you use existing ones? Right. I think like if we were talking 6 months ago, SaaS is dead. You were going to build all of your SaaS product from scratch. Now it turned back into why would you want to do that? Don't you want to focus on the stuff that makes the most value for you? I think, for example, it's hard for us. We're comparing performance or productivity compared to 10 years ago. I was able to build something super cool 10 years ago. It would have taken me 50 people for 3 months. I don't think it's a good comparison because you're not competing with the companies of 10 years ago. You're competing with the companies of today and
mm,
tomorrow.
mhm.
So the fact that you can build something that 6 months, a year 10 years ago was 10x to build doesn't really matter for right now. You're competing against the others that have the same tools that are available to you. So I think how do they like to call it, like first principles? I think first principle thinking is a very good thinking these days, and I think to me first principle starts with the customers always. So
That's good opportunity selection. Yeah, and you're this time around, do you see yourself as creating that category? Or do you see it as more versus I think with Totango, you were creating a category, you were publishing Farm Don't Hunt, you were educating the market. This one, do you see it that way, or do you see it sounds like you see it more as a continuation of
the
hmm,
one of the in the book Four Steps to the Epiphany, but
hmm, Steve.
yeah, that I read initially. So creating a category was the worst desired option, and we didn't want to do it. Right, but we ended up doing that because that was the dynamics, and now I feel that a lot of I just heard like a podcast, like a recent Horowitz podcast yesterday about B2B and enterprise, and creating a category was the
Yeah,
recommended approach there.
it's great.
So maybe it's the framing. So, you can call customer momentum a category. You can call it a continuation of everything that happened before the customer success, customer experience, customer obsession. I don't think that matters that much. I think from one of the things that I've learned with the book is that if you create an easily consumable concept like a book, right? The reason why I wrote the book is because I had too many pitches that I did that I had to repeat the same concept again, again,
Mm,
again. I realized, okay, you know, how can I sleep more and let's write it once and distribute that. And that was the motivation. It was I never had aspiration to be a published author. It was just like a more efficient way to deliver these ideas. So I think I want to capture much of that these days. So we're doing a lot of that on Perspective where there's a lot of around self-service, a lot around a simple concept, a lot of transitional concept where people can, you used to use it used to be a survey, now it's an agent, it used to be a form, now it's right. A lot of like helping people kind of move from, where the status quo to the new thing. And obviously there's a lot of tailwind with AI and agents and voice agents and so forth. So, people can see things that are connected. I think the transition into loops, I can see this also with the team. It's a little bit more tricky these days. Thinking in task delivery is much easier for people than designing self-learning, continuous growing systems. So this is where right now we focus energy on, you know, but we'll know in a few years if it's actually working or not.
Well, I mean, but we will have faith, you'll have faith in yourself that you'll discover the problems and discover the
Yes.
solutions if you stay anchored on the customers and first principles. So it'll be fun to watch you build it, and it has been fun, and I've enjoyed the conversation, and encourage everybody to check out Perspective AI. Is there somewhere is that where they should go, and who's this for, and at this stage, who do you think should be kicking the tires on it?
Yeah. So first, it's getperspective.ai. It's people can start for free without credit cards just to try it out. There are a bunch of templates on the website as well. This is for the classics, the transition. It's for customers. It's for chief customer officers, for customer success teams, customer experience teams. That's on the transition, but it's also for product folks, for founders who are looking to figure out the market. So if you think about information that you need from the market, and the market could be potential customers, existing customers, partners, and so forth, and you want to turn that into decisions and actions, that is for you. It's very easy to get started. And, we've got customers all the way from, single person companies to companies, 1,000 employees. And right now we're starting also with much larger organizations like True Enterprise. But yeah, and we're looking, I mean, as anticipated and expected, we're looking for market feedback. So there's many ways to give it to us. And, I'm very approachable on LinkedIn, on X.
Cool.
Email,
All right.
whatever works.
Awesome. Guy, thank you so much for stopping by, and appreciate you sharing your experience with the audience.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate the invitation, and we're happy to report back in a few months.
All right. See ya.